Imagine two titans staring each other down across the centuries. On one side stand the Greeks, philosophers who taught the world how to think, warriors who once made the Persian Empire tremble, and city-states that gave us democracy, drama, and the very idea of heroism. On the other side rises Rome, a small river town that turned itself into the greatest war machine the ancient world had ever seen. Disciplined, relentless, and hungry for conquest. When these two civilizations finally collided, it wasn't just a clash of armies, it was a clash of entire ways of life. One side fought with spears 16 feet long and the pride of Homer's heroes. The other fought with short swords, iron discipline, and a system that simply refused to lose. This is the story of the Roman conquest of Greece, the moment when the heirs of Alexander the Great were brought to their knees by a republic that started as little more than a village on 7 hills. And yet, strangely, when the dust settled, the conquered ended up conquering their conquerors. This is the epic of Rome versus Greece. Long before Rome even dreamed of empire, the Greek world was already ancient and legendary. From the rocky coasts and scattered islands rose hundreds of independent city-states: Athens, Sparta, Corinth, Thebes, each fiercely proud, each completely different. Athens gave the world the first real democracy and the most powerful navy the Mediterranean had ever seen. Sleek triremes that could ram and sink an enemy before he even knew what hit him. Sparta, on the other hand, was a military camp disguised as a state. From the age of 7, every Spartan boy was taken from his mother and trained to be a perfect soldier, fearless, obedient, unbreakable. Their famous phalanx, a wall of overlapping shields and outstretched spears, was one of the terrifying sights on any ancient battlefield. Greek culture glorified the citizen soldier, the man who fought not for pay, but for glory and for his polis. This was the world that Alexander the Great exploded outward in the 4th century BC, carrying Greek spears all the way to India. But when Alexander died young, his vast empire shattered into warring kingdoms: Macedon, the Seleucids, the Ptolemies. Greece itself fell into chaos, city fighting city, kingdom fighting kingdom. And into that chaos stepped Rome. Rome began as almost nothing, a few farming villages on the Tiber River, ruled first by kings, then by a tough, practical republic. What made Rome different was its army. The Roman legion wasn't just a collection of brave men, it was a perfectly organized killing machine. Heavy shields, short stabbing swords, and javelins designed to bend on impact so the enemy couldn't throw them back. Most importantly, the legions were flexible. While Greek armies locked themselves into one massive, rigid block, Roman soldiers fought in small, independent units called maniples that could wheel, split, or reform on command. Rome grew by never staying still. First, it swallowed its neighbors in Italy. Then, it crushed Carthage across the sea in the Punic Wars. By 200 BC, Rome was the dominant power in the Western Mediterranean, and its eyes turned east, toward the rich, divided, and tempting Greek world. The excuse came quickly. King Philip V of Macedon made the mistake of allying himself with Hannibal during the Second Punic War. Rome never forgot. When Philip started bullying Greek cities, Rome declared that it was coming not as a conqueror, but as a liberator. The Greeks, exhausted by Macedonian domination, actually welcomed the Romans at first. What followed was a series of wars that would decide the fate of the classical world. The First Macedonian War, 214 to 205 BC, was little more than a sideshow. Rome was busy fighting Hannibal. But the Second Macedonian War, 200 to 197 BC, changed everything. A young, brilliant Roman commander named Titus Quinctius Flamininus marched into Greece with 2 legions. At the Battle of Ctesiphon in 197 BC, Philip's proud phalanx met the Roman legions on hilly ground. The phalanx needed flat terrain to stay together. On hills, gaps opened in the line. Roman maniples poured through those gaps like water, hit the Macedonians in the flanks, and shattered them. Philip was forced to surrender. At the Isthmian Games in 196 BC, Flaminos stood before cheering Greeks and proclaimed, "The freedom of Greece." The crowd went wild. They didn't yet realize that freedom under Roman protection was just a prettier word for Roman control. Philip's son Perseus tried one last time to throw off the Roman shadow. In the Third Macedonian War, 171 to 168 BC, he rebuilt the army and even won a few early victories. But at the Battle of Pydna in 168 BC, the Roman commander Lucius Aemilius Paulus used the same trick. He deliberately retreated, lured the phalanx onto uneven ground, and then struck. The Macedonian line broke. Perseus fled, was captured, and paraded in chains through Rome. Macedon was broken into 4 powerless republics. When a fake claimant named Andriscus tried to revive the kingdom in 148 BC, Rome simply annexed the whole region as its first province in the Greek world. Still, many Greek cities clung to the illusion of independence. That illusion died in 164 BC. The Achaean League, a coalition of southern Greek cities led by Corinth, openly defied Rome. The Roman response was swift and merciless. Consul Lucius Mummius marched south, crushed the Greek forces, and ordered the complete destruction of Corinth, one of the richest, most beautiful cities in the ancient world. The men were killed, the women and children sold into slavery, the buildings torn down or burned. When the smoke cleared, Greece was finished as an independent power. Rome now ruled the land of Socrates, Plato, and Leonidas. So why did the Greek phalanx that had conquered half the known world under Alexander fail so completely against Rome? The answer lies in flexibility versus rigidity. The phalanx was a steamroller, unstoppable when it hit you head-on, but slow, clumsy, and fragile on the sides or on rough ground. The Roman legion was a swarm of wolves, smaller units, faster reactions, the ability to exploit any mistake. At Ctesiphon, at Pydna, again and again, the Romans simply refused to fight the battle the way the Greeks wanted. They turned the phalanx's greatest strength into its fatal weakness. And yet the strangest part of the story is what happened next. Rome won on the battlefield, but Greece won the war of the soul. Educated Romans spoke Greek as a second language. Roman nobles sent their sons to Athens to study philosophy. Roman gods took on Greek names. Zeus became Jupiter. Athena became Minerva. Roman poets imitated Homer. Roman architects copied Greek columns. Roman thinkers quoted Plato and Aristotle. By the time the Roman Empire reached its height, it was a Greco-Roman civilization. Roman in power, Greek in culture. As the poet Horace famously put it, captive Greece took captive her rude conqueror. So who really had the greater power? Rome built the biggest empire the world had seen until that point, with roads, laws, and legions that lasted for centuries. Greece gave the world ideas, democracy, logic, tragedy, the very way we think about beauty and truth, ideas that are still alive today. Rome conquered Greece with the sword, but Greece conquered Rome with the mind. 2,000 years later, their shadows still fall across our world, in our parliaments and in our courts, in our theaters and in our universities, in the very words we use. The clash between Rome and Greece wasn't the end of a story, it was the beginning of ours. If this epic collision of civilizations moved you, hit that like button, let me know in the comments which side you think truly won in the end, and subscribe for more stories where history comes alive. Until next time, keep asking the big questions. See you in the next one.